All right, so jumping into the actual dashboard platform itself, we're going to just do a quick walkthrough of some of the key features, do a quick little demonstration, and show people some of the main things that the platform is capable of and some of the main features that I think folks might be interested in. There's more to the platform. For those who are familiar with the HIS2, you'll see that I'm just showing very a high level picture of sort of what's possible and what's available. For those who have not used DHIS2, it's a very robust system, and there's a lot of, I think, nuances and features that you can really get into if you've spent a lot of time in it. We're not going to necessarily touch on everything, but on the PCF website, which we'll put a link up to at the end of the webinar, on the PCF website, there will be some documentation and some guidance for sort of how to use the platform. You'll see here that there's actually demo login. So anybody who's on the call can go to the URL, log in with this demo information. So using demo as the username and PCF_2021 as the password. And that will allow them to sort of explore the data entry form, explore some of the visualizations, and see sort of what the platform looks like. You won't necessarily have all of the features in that demo platform. There's not some of the administrative and sort of maintenance features available to that demo user, some of which I'll show as I walk through. But that should give you a good look and feel of sort of what's available and what you can do within the platform itself. So I'd certainly encourage folks after the call to take a look, log in, and explore the platform in a little bit more detail. But to start, I'm gonna log in so we can show sort of some overview of the platform, some of the key features, and some of the things that I think folks will be interested in. So logging in, this has taken us right to the dashboard pages themselves. This is, you may land at different places when you log in to DHIS2. This is one of the main hubs and features that we want to be focusing on, and I think folks will probably be using pretty regularly throughout the PCF process, is going to this dashboard, reviewing some of the visuals, editing the visuals, copying and pasting things, exporting things into PowerPoint, all of which is possible from this page. But we'll do a little tour of some of the, I think, important features of the dashboard itself. So up here in the upper right-hand corner, if you click on this little box, you can see all of the different tools that are available within DHIS2. Like I said, not all of these tools will be available to a demo user, and many of these tools will only be available to sort of administrators of the DHIS2 platforms in various countries. But right now, all of these tools are available. The two that I think are going to, I guess the three that are probably most important for most users are the data entry form, which we'll get to in a second, which hosts all of the places where, as it states, users can go ahead and enter data throughout the data consolidation process within the PCF. The dashboard, which is where we are now, which hosts all of the visuals on one page related to Care Continuum 1, Care Continuum 2, Care Continuum 3 as our part of the sort of PCF structure. And then I think the third one that's important to highlight is the data visualizer piece. So this is where you can go and either change some of the visuals that exist on the dashboard, or in some situations you can create new visuals. So you'll see in the existing version of the dashboard, there's a lot more. We don't use all of the data that's available. We've only built sort of a small subset of visuals, and there's a lot more data that could be available to users. And the data visualizer would be where you would go to build some of those data visualizations. So let's start, I think, at the beginning with the data entry page. So we'll go over to data entry and we'll look at, so this is sort of the analogous page, we'll say, to the Excel spreadsheet that many of you saw in the previous version of the dashboard and the data platform. So where users could go into that Excel spreadsheet and enter different points of data for different indicators, that's all now been put into this DHIS2 platform. and built in such a way that users can enter all the data here. It will save your state automatically as you're going along, so you don't necessarily need to sit down and enter all the data at one point in time. And you'll see there's a lot of indicators, there's a lot of data that folks have the potential to enter, but it's not necessary to enter all of that data all at once. And so this is sort of the standard data entry form, similar to what you saw in the Excel spreadsheet. So a quick little tour here. Over here, this is the organizational units, which is sort of the geographic hierarchy. In this case, we don't actually have any other geographies in here. But again, for those familiar with DHIS2, you may have your own country hierarchy. So maybe that's the national level, the regional level, the district level. And if you have that information, you can enter that data and create your own custom hierarchy. So if you want to be able to enter data at a national level and a subnational level, you can sort of do both of those things. Right now, we only have global data or sort of a global placeholder put in the data entry form. Then as you select this, you'll see there are a couple different data sets. So there's the general TB profile data set, and this, again, mirrors what was in the Excel spreadsheet. There's the sort of CC1, the care continuum 1, we call it, as part of the PCF, which is the step where people are not yet accessing the healthcare system. There's step 2, or care continuum section 2, where people with TB are diagnosed and notified, but not, or sorry, people with TB are seeking care, are either not diagnosed or not notified, and then CC3, where people with TB are diagnosed and notified, but not necessarily successfully treated. So there's some sub-steps that fit in each one of those. And if you want to read a little bit more about that, that's available on the PCF website. And then we also have some placeholders for UNHLM, the targets and the achievements against those targets that people can enter if they want to be tracking that in here as well. So we'll pick the first one, Care Continuum 1, people not accessing the healthcare system. And then you can pick whichever year you want to enter data. So you can go back as far as 2016 and up to 2020. And I think, we can add new years to that as well. And what you'll see quickly is if we collapse all of these, is similar to the Excel data entry form. There's an epidemiology section of data, there's a people section of data, and there's a system section of data. And all of the indicators sort of align to those categories as defined by the PCF. And in each one of these, you can go into the indicators. There's the ability to enter a lower limit, an upper limit, and sort of the absolute or the actual value for that indicator at a aggregated level. There's also the ability to disaggregate by a variety of categories that vary based on what the indicator is. And so folks can go in and like I said, enter as much or as little of this data at one time as they see fit. And so as you're going through the PCF process, you may want to have a section of these indicators handed off to one user, have them enter the data because that's the data they're familiar with. Or maybe there's a group of folks who are familiar with a section of specific indicators. So you can enter this in sort of phases or chunks as you go along the way. And again, similar for the people, there's a whole bunch of indicators sort of that are aligned with what the people indicators were in the Excel version of the data consolidation spreadsheet, and then similarly for the system. And so all of these indicators are sort of put in here and available for folks to start entering data on, and that will sort of be the baseline or the base set of data that will then feed into all of the dashboards and visualizations. And again, folks can you can sort of go through these at different values or different steps along the way, and take however much of the indicators at one chunk as you want. So that's kind of the data entry form. And again, that's intended to replace the Excel spreadsheet. The nice part is once data is entered in here, there's essentially a pretty direct connection between the data that's entered here and the data that shows up in the visualizations. There is a little bit of a refresh process that needs to happen between the dashboards and these, which administrators of DHIS2 platforms, they'll have to sort of set a refresh time. So maybe it'll refresh once a day, a couple times a day, maybe once a week, depending on how frequently people are updating data. There's also the ability, depending on the role you have as a user, to do that refresh process manually. So if you want to make a change in the data entry form and then refresh it automatically in the dashboards, you can do that as well. And we'll walk through that process in a second. But then all of those visuals go, or all of these data from the data entry go to our dashboard page. So let's navigate over to the dashboard page and see sort of what the layout of this looks like. So for the dashboard page, this should mirror the same sections as of the PCF, the care continuum 1, care continuum 2, care continuum 3. The indicators you can see are labeled with the same labeling structure as what was available in the data entry form. And so you can very quickly tie what's entered here to or what's entered in the data entry form to what's presented here on the dashboard. And what's available in each of the dashboards are some pre-built visuals for a set of indicators, and these are intended to match a little bit what was available in the Tableau workbook, and also what we've seen and what we've gotten as far as feedback goes from some of our NTP partners and users as far as what folks want to be able to see as sort of stock default visuals. This does not mean that these are the only visuals that have to be in here. As I talked about a little earlier, there's the ability to customize or change these visuals or add new visuals if folks want to, depending on how they want to build it out. But each of these buttons up here is a different dashboard or set of visuals, as we call them. And you can see they sort of are indicators related to different sections of the PCF process. And so there's also a couple more. There's a PPA set of visuals in here. There's the UNHLM targets and achievements. And so folks can navigate, and again, I would encourage you to go to the demo version of the dashboard and navigate through this and explore this a little bit more, because these are all available in that demo version as well. And so again, the idea is that having all of these visuals available will make the PCF process a lot easier as you're doing the data consolidation process, as you're doing some of the stakeholder workshops. You can have a lot of these visuals readily available, pre-built, based on that data consolidation process, and folks looking at the same things and being able to interpret and talk through some of the same pieces of information. And to that point, there's actually some nice features that are not necessarily, they're part of all dashboards in DHIS2. They're some key features of DHIS2, but there's also an ability to sort of have a conversation about these. So if I click on any of these three dots in the upper right-hand corner of all of these visuals and click Show Interpretations and Details, we can see that there's the ability for users to write an interpretation of this visual. And so if I wanted to take a look at this and say, it looks like screening is going down over the last 5 years. I can put my interpretation in here, and then if other folks are going to come in, they'll be able to see that, and they can add their own interpretation or have a discussion about that. So that's kind of a nice feature that's built right into DHIS2, and I think is a useful piece for people to explore, and allows you to maybe do some of that workshop and data discussion process asynchronously, so you don't necessarily all have to be in one room at the same time. For parts of that, you can be doing a little bit of an interpretation and discussion along the way as well. So those are some of the key features, I think, of the dashboards. And again, that's a very quick overview of what's available. But I would encourage folks to go in and take a look and explore the demo dashboard. I think the other piece that I wanted to just talk through about the dashboards is, like I was saying earlier, these are some default visuals. This is not necessarily what everybody is going to want to be using all the time. They may want to change these visuals. They may have design preferences or different ways they want to try to tell the story of what's happening with the data. And what's I think useful is that you can actually take any of these visuals and go ahead and open it in the Data Visualizer app. And the visual will show up, and you can see now that there's some customization that's possible with this. So I'm not going to get into all of the features that are available as far as customization goes. You can add more data to this. You can add different categories. So maybe if I only wanted to show 2 or 3 years of this time period instead of all 5, I can do that. And then also there's the ability to change sort of the type of chart or the type of visual that's being shown here. So let's say I wanted this to be a column chart, and I go ahead and update that. That column chart is now updated. And then I'm going to go back to my dashboard. Whoop. Let's see. I'll save that. And then I'm going to go back to my dashboard and refresh. And now this is showing up as a bar chart. So again, there's some flexibility here. We really wanted to provide some baseline, some default visuals for folks, but knowing that there's no way that we're going to be able to anticipate all of the needs and desires of different teams in different situations. I think one of the nice features is the ability to customize and build whatever folks want as part of the platform. So I think that's another nice feature. And there's also the ability to, if you wanted to create new visuals, this data visualizer app, which I was mentioning earlier, is where you can go ahead and actually create new visuals. So you can see there's nothing here. If I wanted to start dragging in data, I can see that all of my indicators will show up here. I think they're actually called data elements. So you can see a lot of indicators are available in the platform, ready to go, and you can use those. Again, these are coming right from the data entry form, so you can use those to create additional visuals and build things on the fly, and then go ahead and add those visuals to different dashboards. So I think that's another nice feature about the DHIS2 system and the platform here. I think the last thing we'll show is just the integration between the data entry and the dashboards themselves. So we'll go back to the data entry, and what I'm going to do is I'm just going to change one data point just to sort of show the process of what it takes to enter new data and then update it and have it reflect in the dashboard. So let's just say that this EPI 1.3 indicator in 2016, we wanted to change it from 20, let's say, to 15. We realized actually it was too high. We want to go in and change it. So we can go back to the data entry form. And again, we're doing global because that's all we have. We'll do the CC1 and we'll go back to 2016. I'm going to collapse all these just to make it easier to see. And instead of 20, I want to go ahead and I want to make this 16. So I'll click the 16 and let's collapse all of these. Run the validation just to make sure that it's the right type of data. Okay, great. And then what I should be able to do is go into where is it? The data administration section. And you can see the analytics. And so what I need to do is just go into these analytics tables. And this is essentially saying all of the analytics that drive the visualizations, we just want to refresh them. And so I click Start Export. It's going to go through the process of reading all of the visualization or the data entry tables where we haven't made any changes. It will just be reloading all the same data that was already in there. It looks like a lot of steps. Took about 10 seconds to refresh. And then what I can do is I can go back to the dashboard, and I think that should have refreshed our 20 down to 16. So again, that refresh process will be available as a manual process to any users who have the right permissions from their DHIS2 administrator to do that refreshing. It's much more likely that in implementation situations, there will sort of be an automated refresh process where, like I said, maybe once a day, a couple times a day, maybe once a week, depending on how often data is being updated, that refresh process will be happening automatically. But there is the opportunity if you have the right administrative settings and roles to be able to manually refresh that, and so you can enter new data in the data entry form and have that populate back into the dashboards. Just like we did, took about 30 seconds to do that as well. So that at a high level, the data entry form, the dashboards, and the data visualizer, I think are the core features of the DHIS2 platform that I think will be most useful for folks as part of the PCF process. There are, for those who will be responsible for managing and implementing DHIS2, there's some more technical pieces, which we'll jump into in a second. And then there's even more technical details and documentation available on the PCF website for folks who are interested. But that I think is the overview of the platform and the system itself, some of the key features. I would encourage folks to log into the demo version of the dashboard. We'll put the URL up at the end of the presentation. Poke around, explore some of the visuals, explore the data entry form, and get a little familiar with it that way. But that's kind of a high level overview of what the dashboard can do, what's available, and some of the key features there. So with that, we'll jump back to slides for a few more minutes and just talk through a few of the last, I think, administrative and technical pieces of the dashboard itself.